Welcome to the Gems of Google Earth, a series where I uncover some of the most fascinating and oftentimes overlooked satellite images and the stories they tell. In this video, we're going to explore the Middle East and North Africa. First on the list is a place I'm going to mispronounce, is Chefchaouen, which was founded during the late 1400s in Morocco by a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. It was initially a military bastion for strategic purposes in order to resist Catholic onslaught by the Portuguese. Chefchaouen comes from the Berber language, meaning look at the horns, in reference to the mountain peaks that are close to the city. But what is most well known about the city is not its history, but rather its color scheme. It's renowned for its blue color, and walking around the city, it is just absolutely stunning. However, despite being here and talking to some of the natives, I couldn't really get any sort of definitive answer as to why this city is blue other than it just looks kind of cool. What is even cooler about the city is that it by and large was somewhat isolated and hidden. It was forbidden for non-practitioners of the Islamic faith, but today is a cosmopolitan city with an old Medina where you can see the blue tapestries and wall patterns, and a new Medina that looks like your typical modern city, which is quite common in Morocco. Next on the list is also in North Africa. This is the Valley of the Kings. Now, Egypt is one of the most iconic countries on the face of the planet Earth, and this region is quite possibly, perhaps, one of the third or fourth most iconic places in one of the most iconic countries. While not as famous as the pyramids of Giza or the nearby Sphinx, this area is quite remarkable in and of itself. It is where many of the pharaohs of the New Kingdom were buried. You can see these really remarkable limestone cliffs that hold many of these tombs of some of the mightiest rulers of the ancient world. Now, keep in mind that many of these tombs are nowhere near as old as what you'd see in the pyramids of Giza, which dates back to the Old Kingdom, but they're still remarkable nonetheless. You can also see the tomb of Tutankhamun, which is one of the most famous in the Valley of the Kings, and it was discovered during the 1920s by the British archaeologist Howard Carter. Now, Tutankhamun wasn't particularly important when it comes to his archaeological findings, but apparently the mold in the tomb eventually led to the deaths of the archaeologists who discovered it. Let's move on to the Middle East and what is technically in Asia. The Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is one of the coolest natural wonders on the face of the planet Earth. It pretty much is composed of brine water and is arguably the most famous brine water body, perhaps only rivaled by Salt Lake in Utah. What is quite remarkable is that this is actually the lowest point on the face of the planet Earth in terms of elevation, lying well over 1,000 feet or over 400 meters below sea level. The reason why it's called the Dead Sea is because high salinity is really good at killing just about everything except for brine shrimp. So, if you're not a brine shrimp, chances are you won't fare well in these waters. However, you will float very easily. Moving north from Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinian territories, we get to Lebanon. Here we have the Cedars of God, or Cedars of the Lord. Now, if you look at the Lebanese flag, you will see a cedar tree. And chances are, if you are familiar with the Bible, you have probably heard of the Cedars of Lebanon. These were the trees that supposedly provided the wood for the first temple of Judaism, when the king of one of the Phoenician city-states provided wood for King Solomon of Israel and Judea. These trees are among the oldest in the world. Perhaps not exactly the oldest, it's rather hard to confirm, but certainly some of the oldest. Many of these trees are over 2,000 years old, making them as old as Christianity. Today, they are emblematic of the Lebanese nation, revered by Christians, Muslims, and Jews all together. These three religions like to fight each other on a variety of different issues, but they can all agree that the Cedars of Lebanon are pretty awesome. And in fact, to this day, if you live in the US or Canada, you can see plenty of hospitals named after them. Mount Ararat is next on the list. Now, this mountain is located in what is now Turkey, but is very close to the Armenian border and plays a very significant role in the national identities of both nations, despite their very obvious historical grievances. What this mountain is most well known for is being the fabled location where Noah's Ark eventually landed upon when the Great Deluge ended. Now, to be clear, science and archaeology do not exactly back up the literal interpretation of Noah's Ark, to put it lightly, but nonetheless, the cultural elements of this mountain still stand firm and have become an integral part of Judaism, Christianity, Islam, as well as the modern nations of Turkey and Armenia. Next on the list is the city of Ur, or more accurately, the ruins of Ur. That is spelled U-R. Yeah, it's a funny sounding name, but give it some slack as it was one of the first major cities in human history. Located in southern Mesopotamia, and again, what is now Iraq. Along the Tigris and the Euphrates, you had the Fertile Crescent, which allowed for the proliferation of the first complex societies, namely in the form of cities, which allowed not only for agriculture, but a diversification of labor. Here you can see a number of ziggurats along the banks of the Euphrates River. This truly is the birthplace of civilization, and it is remarkable at how well intact these are despite their incredibly old age. Some of these monuments are actually nearly 6,000 years old. So this is pretty much as old as civilization gets, or more accurately, the remnants of civilization gets. These Sumerians, which were the major culture of Ur, along with other city-states like Uruk, pretty much invented the time system we use. So if you refer to a minute being 60 seconds and 60 minutes being an hour, you have these people of this former city to thank for. And on top of that, they developed one of the earliest writing systems called cuneiform. Let's move southward into the Empty Quarter. Now, in sharp contrast to the Fertile Crescent and the Levant, the written history of the Arabian Peninsula, of what we consider to be the most Arabian parts of Arabia, actually is a lot younger. This is by and large due to the vast desert scapes of this land, which is incredibly arid. Only the toughest of the tough Bedouins could survive in this location, and unless you are a camel or a certain type of lizard, chances are it is not the best place to live. Nonetheless, the Empty Quarter is incredibly beautiful and vast, with sand dunes as far as the eye can see. If you ever visit the UAE, Saudi Arabia, or surrounding countries, I highly recommend you visit this region. While it doesn't have too much history, as much of the human activity has happened on the coast of the Arabian Peninsula, its natural history is simply incredible. And maps need to be updated very frequently given how the shape of the sand dunes changes due to the winds. Another fun fact about this location is that you can actually see quasi-secret military, namely Air Force bases, such as this one that I found in the UAE and this one that I found in Saudi Arabia. Next on the list is Neom. I spoke about Saudi Arabia and its natural history, so how about its current trajectory? Neom is basically this sci-fi utopian / dystopian mega project. the brainchild of Mohammed bin Salman, the quasi-leader of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and it stretches in an area nearby the borders of Jordan and Egypt to touch the Red Sea through the desert. To be clear, this project is far from complete, and I am rather skeptical that it will ever be completed. The concept is that you have a giant line with public transit and cutting-edge technology transporting people across a single, transit line with condos, houses, businesses, and industrial uses all along one line. Now, to be clear, I am an urban planner and I personally think this idea is terrible. However, I think that it makes a fantastic inspiration for a dystopian sci-fi novel. So I kind of sort of want to see it happen. Moving on. Going back to Turkey, we reach the ruins of Troy. Now, keep in mind, at the time of the Trojan War, if it ever did exist, the nations of Turkey and Greece didn't exist in their current forms. Nonetheless, we've all heard of the Battle of Troy. According to Homer's epic poem, the Iliad, various Greek city-states banded together to fight the city-state of Troy in order to rescue Helen and return her back to her homeland in Greece. To be clear, we don't know if there was actually a Trojan War. Chances are, if there was a war, it was not over one woman, but rather Greek access into straits into the Black Sea. After all, money is a lot more important than women. Sorry, ladies. At least according to the ancient Greeks. Nonetheless, while many Europeans considered the legend of Troy to be pure mythology and the city to just be a fabric of people's imaginations, one German quasi-archaeologist did eventually find the ruins of Troy. His excavation was pretty destructive towards many of the historical sites, but he did manage to unravel the fact that Troy did indeed exist. And it was not so much a myth, but rather a legend, blending in bullshit with truth. And let's move on to the Jordan River. This is located in the Levant in the Middle East. The Levant is currently composed of the nations of Jordan, Israel, Lebanon, Syria, and the Palestinian territories. The Jordan River splits the West Bank, Israel, and Jordan. This is part of the larger Great Rift Valley. Now, if you actually look at pictures of the Jordan River, you can clearly tell that it's not really a river, but rather a stream. I suppose in such an arid region, streams are just counted as rivers because they don't have that much water, in the same way that Mount Zion isn't really a mountain, but a hill. After all, geography can be relative, even physical geography. Nonetheless, despite its lack of impressive naturalistic qualities, the Jordan River is very important for human circumstances, and especially religion, as it is said to be the river in which Jesus was baptized by John the Baptist. This has made it very important not only for Christianity, but also for the pre-existing Judaism of which Christianity stemmed from, as well as Islam, which stemmed from both of them. And there you have it. Those are some of the gems of the Middle East and North Africa on Google Earth. In my next video, I'm going to be covering the gems of Sub-Saharan Africa. Stay tuned.